Assalamu alaikum, everyone, to another session of Ask Dr. Saleem, and a very warm welcome to everyone. Here in this session, you can ask your questions in Urdu or English, your language of preference. The answers will be given in English, however, unless you request them to be also translated in Urdu. And you can ask any questions that you fancy related to Quran or Islam. And so with that, we have our first question from Saqib Khan. Saqib Khan, please go ahead.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम सर।
वालेकुम अस्सलाम।
सर मेरा सवाल तकफीर से मुताल्लिक है। एक दो महीने पहले भी मैंने सवाल किया था, तो उसमें जवाब में से एक दो चीज़ें मैंने पूछनी थी। वो ये है कि मेरे जहन में जो चीज़ आई थी वो ये थी कि एक शख्स जो नबूवत का झूठा दावा करता है, लेकिन अगर वो कहता है कि जी मैं मुसलमान हूँ, तो हम उसे मुसलमान ही समझेंगे। इसी तरह से अगर कोई शख्स कहता है जी कि मैं बाकी तो सारी चीज़ों को मानता हूँ, लेकिन मैं फरिश्तों के वजूद पर यकीन नहीं रखता, लेकिन हूँ मैं मुसलमान, तो भी हम उसे मुसलमान ही समझेंगे। इसी तरह से कोई शख्स कहता है कि आखिरत के दिन पर मैं यकीन नहीं रखता, लेकिन बाकी चीज़ों को मानता हूँ, लेकिन हूँ मैं मुसलमान। तो समझना मैंने ये था कि आखिर फिर मुसलमान है कौन? यानी कि जो सारी चीज़ों को मान रहा है वो भी मुसलमान है, जो कुछ चीज़ों को मान रहा है, कुछ को नहीं मान रहा, लेकिन वो कहता है कि मैं मुसलमान हूँ, तो चूंकि वो अपनी मजहबी शनाख्त खुद बयान कर रहा है, इसलिए हम उसे मुसलमान समझेंगे। तो मतलब डिफरेंस फिर क्या है?
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Yeah, you're absolutely correct. And the answer to this question is that as far as a person calls himself to be a Muslim, we cannot argue otherwise, because you see, it's a person's own faith and his own beliefs that make him whatever he wants to. So, as far as the question is concerned, whether he believes in certain precepts of religion, for example, if he doesn't believe in the angels or he doesn't believe in some of the other important beliefs, we'll argue with him, we'll debate with him. You see, the thing is that why is it that he's not believing in the angels? Why is it that he's denying some of the fundamental principles? So, in most cases, what happens is that the person is actually not denying the things that we think he's denying. He has another explanation of those things. He considers those things to have a different explanation. So, as long as a person is debating and is having his own opinion about a certain thing, yes, we will continue to debate with him. We will ask him that, well, whatever you are saying has flaws or such and such flaws, and these are the arguments. But this does not change his status as a Muslim. You remember that as far as a person himself is concerned, as long as he proclaims himself to be a Muslim, we don't have any right to call him otherwise. And a very pertinent example of this you can be seen in the Quran as well. So the people of the book of the times of Prophet Muhammad, they indulged in a heinous form of polytheism, and they regarded Jesus to be the Son of God. And at the same time, they said that this is their own explanation of monotheism. They explained Trinity in a way that they thought that this is an explanation of monotheism, and they said that they believe in one God, in spite of the fact that they were regarding Jesus to be the Son of God. So look what the Quran did. So not at a single instance in the Quran can you find that the people of the book, in spite of committing this extreme form of polytheism, were called polytheists. They were never called mushriks. They were never called polytheists. Yes, it was said that they have committed polytheism, but the name polytheism or the title polytheists was not given to them, because they themselves did not conform this title. So a person, whatever he is, Quran has accepted that value or that particular value judgment that that person makes of himself. Unless the person himself says that I am doing shirk or I am polytheistic, or the fact is that I have retracted, we don't have any right to say that. So that is what we see in the Quran clearly. So my answer to your question would be that what exactly is the agenda with us, or what is our motivation to discard a person from religion when he himself thinks that he is following religion? As I said, he always has a different interpretation of certain things that we think are not the same as ours. So as long as he's interpreting a thing differently, we will debate with him, and this debate should go on. And this should not be any cause of regarding him to be a non-Muslim in any way.
अच्छा सर, इस सिलसिले में कुछ बात हुई भी थी मेरी अपने अलका बाप से। तो वो कहते हैं कि जहाँ पे ये कहा जाता है कि अथॉरिटी नहीं है कुरान मजीद में किसी को काफिर कहने की, तो जहाँ पे ये बात लफ्जों में मौजूद नहीं है कि किसी के पास तकफीर की अथॉरिटी नहीं है, वहीं पे कहीं पे ये भी लफ्जों में मौजूद नहीं है कि अथॉरिटी नहीं है किसी को तकफीर करने की। यानी कि ना मुस्बत तौर पे कोई बयान कुरान मजीद में मौजूद है, लेकिन दूसरी तरफ मनफी तौर पे भी कोई बयान मौजूद नहीं है। तो इस सिलसिले में जरा थोड़ी वजाहत फरमा दें।
I have just given you this example. This is an example of exactly the same thing, that how the Quran has honored the people of the book. They indulged in polytheism. They regarded Jesus to be the Son of God. This is something which the Quran did not accept. But at the same time, it did not call them polytheists. It did not call them mushrik, because they themselves said that we are not mushriks. There's no bigger an example of this that you can find in the Quran. So the Quran is accepting their own verdict. The Quran is not saying that you are mushriks. At not a single instance in the Quran you will find the people of the book being called mushriks or polytheists. Yes, they have been called guilty of committing polytheism, just as a Muslim or a believer or a monotheist can commit polytheism by going to the grave of a saint and prostrating there. But that's an act of polytheism that may be committed by an otherwise monotheistic person. So I think there is no further example that can be given, that the Quran did not challenge this prerogative of the people of the book. It accepted and said, okay, we will call you monotheists. And that is precisely why all the three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, they are all labeled as monotheistic religions. In spite of, and not only the Jews, not only the Christians, the Jews also did the same. So the Jews of Arabia regarded Azar to be the son of God. And they said that, well, we are monotheists. So the Quran accepted their own verdict about themselves. Yes, it did criticize them. It told them that this is not a fair interpretation of monotheism. And this debate has been going on ever since. But not at a single instance, you can bear me out and you can study the Quran, have the Jews and the Christians of the times of Prophet Muhammad ever been called mushriks. I think this is the biggest thing that we can say in this matter.
Thank you very much, Dr.
शुक्रिया सर।
We have a question in the chat that asks, in Imam Farahi's translation of Surah Alaq, he says, the Quran says that Allah ne kul ke kul alfaz, Quran Allah ke kul alfaz hai. Does that mean that the previous scriptures had prophets' words included in it?
No, not at all. You see, the previous scriptures, the way they were revealed, they were always words from God. But what happened over a period of time was that it did not remain pure they did not remain pure in their original form. So human words were added in the form of translation, in the form of explanatory notes, and it all got jumbled up. And not only this, the original language was lost of these scriptures. But when they were revealed and they were in their original form, they were basically words of God Himself. So the Torah and the Injil and the Zabur, the Psalms, all of these three books and other books as well, which we know were revealed to other prophets, they all had words of God.
So this is essentially alluding to what Allah's promise is, that the Quran will not change until the day of judgment.
What exactly is the promise?
That the Quran you will still find it in its original form.
I mean, it's not what the Quran has stated about itself is that inna nahnu nazzalna zikra wa inna lahu lahafizun, which this is a promise made by the Almighty Himself, that we have revealed this zikr or reminder and we will be its protectors and guardians. So that is another claim which the Quran has made. The two things are separate as far as being the word of God is concerned. Every book of God is the word of God. The only thing is that the previous books were not protected by divine command, because the institution of prophethood was continuing, and every subsequent prophet had the opportunity of correcting any mistake in the previous scriptures if people would adulterate them. But in the case of the final prophet, obviously, there was no such opportunity later on, because the institution of prophethood would be ending on the last prophet. So the last book had to be preserved. So I think that these are two entirely different concepts, and they should be understood parallel to each other.
Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Rafia Khwaja, please go ahead.
Assalamualaikum, Dr. Saleem.
Walaikum
I want to
salam.
ask you that, the LGBT community is now all over the world. There are people in Pakistan who are also the type, gays and lesbians. I know of a family, distantly related, whose son is gay and they have been ostracized, and the parents have had a total nervous breakdown. Nobody wants to meet them. They are abused. It's really heartbreaking to see them. So I would like to know your opinion when somebody's child is like this. What are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to totally ignore them or criticize them or condemn them? Or are we supposed to accept, okay, let's find out what is the cause? Because the husband and wife just can't face their relatives and friends anymore.
So this is a very tragic situation. I think that every single human being, whatever his beliefs are, whatever her beliefs are, has the, he has the prerogative to be granted respect and honor as a human being, whatever his or her beliefs are. Independent of these beliefs, human being should be respected out of the fact that he is a creature of God. He has been created by God. Beliefs and ideologies, they can be discussed and they can be disagreed or agreed, but this should not be a cause of any excommunication, I would say, from the society in any way or from the family. This is a person's private view. If he is open to discussing it, okay, we will discuss it. Otherwise, there is not even any need to discuss it. So I think that people must realize that we have to first respect everyone for what they are, for what they believe in, and also leave their matter and their judgment to God, because this is God's domain. We are no one to judge people by what they are believing, because we are not going to reward or punish them on that basis, because we don't have that authority, or even excommunicate them in any situation. It's a person's personal choice, whatever he or she would like to do. So I think this is on the part of the society a very, very horrific attitude. I don't have more stern words to say for it, because such people, they should be regarded with sympathy, with friendliness, with all the concern that you can have for any other person. And why should we be so conscious about these things when there are people who are committing even more violent mistakes? For example, there are people who have extramarital relations, and this goes unchecked in our society. There are so many people who live as married people, but the wife has, I can tell you out of this about this. I think many of you would be knowing that there are instances in our families in which the wife has relations with other men and the husband has relations with other women. This goes on, and people do tolerate it. And in spite of knowing this fact that they have this out of wedlock relations. So, if this is tolerated in a way that we do, I think all other deviations should be tolerated, and their matter should be left to God. Yes, if we get the chance, and if the person is interested to find out what religion says, we can always communicate that to that person, and that's the end of that. We don't have any business to barge into his or her privacy.
Dr. Shehzad, they've taken him to a medical doctor. They have tried to find out. But it's the tragedy is the way the parents are suffering. लड़का को जो कुछ भी हो रहा है, it's okay. But when your own close brothers and sisters look down upon you and say कि इसको सीधा करो and इसको put him on the right direction, that is the tragedy I am seeing.
So if you go back 100 years, something similar happened. I think it still happens in a slightly different area. So people who were left-handed, it's a very small thing in the grand scheme of God. They would be similarly forced, and they would be really, I mean, it's not just the Muslim world, even the Christians, because the right hand was regarded to be a sacred thing. So this happened, I mean, this has happened all along, that people would force, and yes, amongst Muslims this is much more pronounced. So in the last 50 years or 100 years, maybe today things have slightly changed, but the same treatment was meted out to left-handers, and they were forced to change into right-handers. So I think this is a very, very horrible situation. People are, they don't realize that they are interfering in God's scheme. If God is doing something, and if people are thinking, I mean, they have their own orientation to think about, well, of course we can disagree with such people. Disagreement is not a problem. But to be a person who does not meet such people or looks down upon them, I call this sheer arrogance. I mean, if you look down upon people, whatever they are, it's sheer arrogance on our part. We cannot look down on people in any way. As a matter of fact, we need to review what we are ourselves. If other people have flaws, we have perhaps graver flaws than them. So our business is to look into our own selves instead of finding out or trying to, I mean, judge the other person.
Assalamu alaikum.
Mustafa,
Wa alaikum assalam.
Well, I being a diplomat, there is a custom over there that you twist the truth, but Islam does not allow you twisting the truth. But to defend your country, if at least you do not twist it, at least you avoid speaking the truth. So what is the ruling of Islam over here? And secondly, there is also a custom over here that once you give a farewell to some gentleman going outside your department, you give him farewell from the money of government department. This is again a custom. It is not, although disallowed, nobody says this is disallowed, but in law it is not written, but by custom it has become allowed. So what is the ruling of Islam about these two customs, tea breaks and twisting of the truth? Thank you.
I think the best judge of all these is your own conscience. A person knows very well from inside whether something wrong is being done or not. There are situations in which an outside opinion at times is not possible, because there are so many variables, there are so many situations that a person might be in. So I think you should trust your gut feeling, you should trust your conscience, and remember that twisting the truth or distorting the truth, of course, is something which is not looked upon with any favor by any standards of morality, let alone Islam. It's not just Islam, it's basic morality which every single human being should follow. And as far as remaining silent in certain situations in which you think that speaking the truth is not required here for some expediency, this could be a situation. But as I said, the person himself or herself is the best judge. Similar is the case with the expenses that you incur because of spending government money. I mean, if the custom is such that everyone knows and the seniors also know and they have tacitly allowed it, maybe there is some option left. But if you know it's an open violation and no one is checking, simply because everyone is going to go through this procedure and he or she would like this concession to be given. So I think it's a question of your own conscience that has to have the final say. And I think your conscience will seldom lie to you in these situations.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम रहमतुल्लाह।
Walaikum assalam.
डॉक्टर साहब, मेरा सवाल था, जन्नत में जब इंसान चले जाएंगे तो क्या वो उनकी औलाद कर सकेंगे वहां, मतलब वो मामला रहेगा कि वो?
I mean, we know from Surah Tur that when children and their parents, both of them deserve paradise. I mean, they have become eligible for paradise. Then we know that the Quran says that the two shall be united. So that is something which we know from the Quran. So you have to be basically eligible for paradise. But if you are once you're in paradise, and you have different levels. I mean, there are different levels in paradise. So if the parents are in a different level and the children are in a different level, we know from the Quran that the two shall be united, and that's a favor or something which is a gracious act by the Almighty. But you have to be eligible for paradise. So it's not that if they're not eligible, then they'll still be united with their parents. So to being united with the parents is something which will only occur if both both become eligible for paradise. But of course, they could be having different levels of paradise.
जी इसमें एक सवाल जो मेरा शायद मैं क्लियर नहीं कर पाया, मतलब वो बच्चे जो हैं अगर वो भी हैं तो वो जन्नत में आ जाएंगे, लेकिन क्या नए बच्चे पैदा कर पाएंगे क्या इंसान को? अगर जिबल्लत है कि छोटे बच्चे हैं रहते हैं उन्हें पालते हैं, एक मोहब्बत पैदा होती है जो हम दुनिया में महसूस होता है.
This is something that we have no knowledge of it at this time. What exactly would be the situation in paradise, whether new children would be born there, whether you'll have wedding with women the way we have here. Of course, we would be in a position to get married because the Quran says, وَزَوَّجْنَاهُمْ بِحُورٍ عِينٍ, that we'll marry you to maidens. So that is the concept that would be there, some form of unity and some form of union. But whether children would be born out of this wedlock or not, this has not been disclosed anywhere in the Quran or anywhere in any authentic narrative. So I think it needs to be seen. We should wait for that and let's see what happens there.
Jazakallah.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Akram Bhatti, you're up next. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
And if I heard correctly, you said earlier that we cannot call people non-Muslim if they proclaim to be a Muslim. Yes, but how about these people who are Jews and Christians? We can call them. We call them Christian and Jews, and then Quran Pak says only religion will be accepted in Islam. Like in Surah Al-Imran 85, Ayah, Allah says that, and Al-Sir also says very clearly that only acceptable religion near Islam, near Allah will be Islam. So we got, we know.
So these are two different things. One is God's judgment, what He will accept on the day of judgment. So that is something He is going to do. That's His domain. But in this world, if anyone calls himself to be or herself to be a Muslim, that's another thing. So we have no right to in any way negate this opinion. Whether what he is going to be accepted ultimately is, of course, God's judgment, but that is going to take place on the day of judgment. We are talking about this world. In this world, if a person calls himself to be a Muslim in any way, so we have no right to negate this title that he wants for himself. As far as the Jews and Christians are concerned, they don't call themselves to be Muslims. They call themselves to be Jews and Christians. So, it's fine to call them Jews and Christians. What we are advising people in the light of the Quran is that they cannot be called kafir. They cannot be called as disbelievers, because you see, the word kafir and disbeliever, the way it is used in the Quran, is for those disbelievers or for those non-Muslims, we can say, who intentionally deny the truth, who know what the truth is and then in spite of that they deny it. So Jews and Christians of today, we don't know whether they are denying intentionally or not, or out of some confusion maybe, or out of some other reason. So therefore, the right title for them is what they have called themselves, Jews and Christians. So we cannot call them kafir. So this is another debate. They don't say that they are Muslims. They say they are Jews and Christians. So we'll call them whatever they would like to be called.
Not because they're the mushrik, but they call themselves Jews and Christians because they do not believe in Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam as being the last.
Okay, so that is their right. Let them do so. So whether this is acceptable to God or not, that is God's decision. So let God exercise.
Doesn't a Muslim have to believe in Allah and and all the Anbiyas and all the books and all the Akhira and all that?
Of course. You see, what we are saying here is that the Jews and Christians are not calling themselves to be Muslims. They are calling themselves to be Jews and Christians. So whatever they would like to be called, we would graciously accept that. That's another story and that's a different matter. What we are saying here is that if a person calls himself to be a Muslim, not a Jew or a Christian, he calls himself, whatever his or her beliefs are, he or she says that I am a Muslim, then we don't have any right to in any way refute his or her title.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Jazakallah.
Thank you, Muhammad Qasim. You're up next. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Right.
सर आपसे गुजारिश है कि उर्दू में जवाब दिएगा। पिछली बार हमने सवाल किया था नमाज के ताल्लुक से, तो आपने जवाब दिया था कि नमाज में दो हिस्से होते हैं, एक फिक्स्ड जो कि हमको अरबी में ही करना है और दूसरा ऑप्शनल होता है, हर कोई अपने जबान में कर सकता है। तो मेरा अभी का जो सवाल है वो फिक्स्ड पार्ट के लिए है, जो हमको अरबी में ही करना है, अरबी में ही अदा करना है। तो सवाल यह है कि वो फिक्स्ड पार्ट में ही अरबी की पाबंदी क्यों है?
My answer to you first in English is that as far as your first question is concerned, this is something that has been transmitted from generation to generation in the form of an established practice. So, if you look at the prayers which are offered in congregation, and they are called the prayers which are offered in loudly. So, these are the 5 areas in which the Imam is always bound to say these in the Arabic language. So, the simple argument is that the tawatur which the prayer possesses affords this importance that only words which are said out aloud in all these prayers, the Fajr prayer, the Maghrib prayer and the Isha prayer. So these have been being offered ever since the times of the Prophet right until now through tawatur. And in all these 3 loud prayers, I'm talking about the Jahri prayers, you'll find that Allahu Akbar, Sami Allahu liman hamida, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah as the azkar, and then 2 things as utterances, for example, the Surah Fatiha and anything that you add to Surah Fatiha right after Surah Fatiha. These are the 5 utterances or these azkar that you'll find every single person all over the world, ever since the times of the Prophet, saying these words in Arabic. So this is the reason that we say that this is why it has been, we have been bound to say these things in Arabic. So you don't need to look up any hadith for that. You don't need to look up any book of history for that. It is sufficient for the tawatur to be established that these 3 prayers that we offer, I mean, we are still offering, and these are being offered all over the world ever since the time of the Prophet in such a vast territory that all these 5 azkars or 5 occasions of these 5 utterances have always been said in the Arabic language. And the second part to your question, that why is it that they are being what is the stipulation? What is the reason behind the stipulation? Then, of course, the reason that comes to my mind is that to create that unity, that we have been given these 5 occasions to say them in Arabic, and at the same time we know that the part which we read with Surah Fatiha and right after Surah Fatiha, part of the Quran, so that was revealed in the form of the Arabic language as the Quran. So the Almighty wanted that we should learn Arabic, we should know the Quran the way we used to, and that the way people who are already conversant with Arabic they used to. And in the times of the Prophet, when countries would be conquered, so their language would generally be changed. So even people who were non-Arabs, for example, their language soon became Arabic. And for them, they were taught Arabic, and slowly and surely the whole empire, as it spread, the language of the empire became the Arabic language, and that is how people started to learn Arabic and the Quran itself. And in the times of Caliph Umar, for example, we know that he is the first person to appoint teachers, and he would pay them scholarships. So these teachers were sent to various parts of the Muslim empire, and the purpose of these teachers would be that they teach the Quran to the converts and to other people who would like to learn them. So a very vast campaign was launched by Umar Ritala Anho in his 9.5 year period, which was instrumental in people learning and knowing the Quran through its own original language.
Thank you very much. Hassam Alaizai. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. Hassam, you're up next.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Shehzad.
Walaikum assalam.
So, sir, one of the things that was very inspiring for me to understand was the creation of an Islamic state when Ghamidi Sahab told us, and we came to realize that the concept that you have to strive for an Islamic state, it is not in the Quran. However, if अगर मुसलमानों का कहीं पर नज़्म इज्तिमाई कायम हो जाता है तो उसके बाद then they have to फिर you have to apply a set of certain rules and principles. So, sir, I am a doctor by profession, and I am also volunteering to teach English to the girls in Afghanistan online because the Taliban have closed all of their schools. So the girls there are helpless. सो सर जो मैंने गांधी साहब से और हमने जो एक बात सुनी है और जिसको मुझे काफ़ी ठीक भी लगती है वो ये है कि द स्टेट कैन इफ देयर इज एन इस्लामिक स्टेट देन इट कैन ओनली इंटरफेयर इन द लाइव्स ऑफ इट्स इनहिबिटेंट्स अगर कभी वहाँ पर फसाद फिल अर्ज का खतरा हो या उसकी वजह से. But sir, I think the definition of fasad fil earth is very broad because we can say, okay, fasad fil arz, because the Taliban they use the same definition कि अगर औरत के सर से पर्दा उतरेगा तो that is going to be fasad fil arz. औरत will start their education, so that is going to be fasad fil arz. So I think that definition is very broad. So how do we draw a line and how do we लाइक पिन पॉइंट कि ये चीज़ फसाद फिल अर्ज है और ये चीज़ फसाद फिल अर्ज नहीं है बिकॉज देयर इज अ लॉट ऑफ ऑपरेशन इन द इस्लामिक नेशंस एंड एवरीथिंग जस्ट बिकॉज वो काफ़ी सारी चीज़ों को फसाद फिल अर्ज के साथ जोड़ देते हैं अटैच कर देते हैं सो हाउ आर वी गोइंग टू मेक दिस डिस्टिंक्शन
I think the Quran itself has made this distinction, and I think we should follow the Quran. And if you study the Quran, we get to know that spreading disorder in the land, it means to challenge the life, wealth, and honor of people. Anything which challenges the life, wealth, and honor of people, and creates a law and order situation. I mean, not just challenge it, but challenges it in a manner that it becomes a law and order situation, then this is what is called fasad, or this is what is called anarchy or disorder. So the correct word for fasad in the English language is something which can convey a lot, and that is anarchy, to create lawlessness in a way that you challenge the law and you go after the life, wealth, and honor of people. So this is what fasad is. I mean, everything else is that you say could be called deviance. It could be called your personal choice. It could be, it could be a number of things. So we need to we need to judge each matter or discuss each matter separately. But as far as fasad fil ard is concerned, it is something in which you create a law and order situation. You create lawlessness in the society. There is no law left in the society. Anarchy is there. And as a result, the life, wealth, and honor of a human being is at stake. So this is how we should understand that. And as far as this question is concerned, that whether a woman or a man follows religion or not, that is a purely different scenario. That is what we call is that a person is following religion the way he should follow it, or he should not follow it, or whatever his own reason is, or his own argument is, or his own interpretation is. We are no one to impose our interpretation on people. So as far as the state is concerned, the state cannot regulate the personal lives of people, because this is how the Quran has told us that you cannot regulate the personal lives of people. Laws can be made in which you can, of course, legislate against this rule that anyone who challenges the life and wealth and honor of people, he will be punished. Similarly, a person who usurps the rights of people, he should be punished. So there are just two bases of enacting laws in the negative sense. Other than that, if a person deviates from religion, it is his own right. If he, for example, if a woman doesn't cover up her head, or if a husband or a man decides that he's not going to keep a beard, that's a personal choice which a man and a woman have been given. But since the Taliban, they think that every directive which God has given has this, notion attached to it that a state can interfere in the personal lives of people. It is here that the problem lies. So they think that every single directive which the state has given or Islam has given to the state, it is the responsibility of the state to have it implemented. So, it is here that we need to argue with them, discuss with them. And of course, we cannot argue and discuss with many of them because they don't think that it is a matter which can be reasoned out. But anyway, if a person would like to argue or discuss this matter, then I think the linchpin or the problem lies in the fact that things which have been left to a person's own private choice, and it's his or her choice what he or she would like to do, and be held accountable before God as a result. So these are, a very large part of a person's life is his private choice. Just two things, two areas they relate to the state. One, as I said, is anything which causes lawlessness in the society, challenges the life, wealth, and honor of people. This is one basis. And the other basis is that if you usurp the rights of other people. So laws can be made to stop such perpetrations. Other than that, a person is free to choose his own life or her own life. But the Taliban, as you know, and some other followers of their viewpoint, they have a different view. So I think it's basically an ideological difference of opinion that has to be understood.
Abdul Wadud Qazi, you're up next. Please go ahead. Please be concise and only one question.
Sure. Thank you. Dr. Shehzad Saleem, my question relates to lawlessness and the issue of Palestine. What if the state itself is creating lawlessness? We know these are two unequal powers. Israelis backed by the United States, Palestine on its own. Sometimes other Muslim states get involved. It seems like Israel is usurping rights. How would you answer that? Lawlessness is on Israel.
You see, this is more of a political issue if you talk about Palestine, the way things are shaping up there. So this is like a stage which has been set by superpowers, and they, on their own choices and their own prerogatives, they behave. I don't think that much of it has got to do with religion, except for a very, very small part of it. At the moment, whatever is going on there is basically a political scenario. And it should be, seen as a political scenario that the world superpowers, they are behaving in a certain way. This is what happens whenever there is a superpower, or there are a couple of superpowers, or maybe, as we can see in the case of the UN, there are 5 of them. So if they want to stick to a certain policy, this is what happens. And the age-old principle of might is right is taking its course. So I think that that is another scenario. But what I was referring to, the fact is that lawlessness within a society in which there is law. So that was a different question. Fasad fil ard or anarchy in the land. So that is something if there is this law which is prevalent, and there are some people who are bent upon challenging that law. So that question related to this particular scenario. So the Israel and Palestine conflict, which is going on at the moment, of course, it is a matter of grave and deep concern for all of us. But the thing is that it is more politically marshaled. So, you need to understand it at the political level and how things are going on at the political level. And it's not just something that has happened now. It's almost a century-old dispute. In 1917, with the Balfour Declaration, Lord Balfour was the person who declared that. And because the help of the Jews were sought in the First World War, a promise was made to them that the state of Israel would be given to them. And this took about, let's say, 30 years down the road. And it was only in 1948 that they were able to establish that. So I think these events have to be traced back to history, the First World War, and how the Ottoman Empire and later on people sided, especially Turkey, with the rest of the world in the first 2 world wars. And we need to trace that whole scenario there, and also look at how the UN had given this solution once in 1948, that this city of Jerusalem should be administered in a way that all these 3 religions should be given space so that they can do their rituals there. A lot has happened ever since that, and we know that the PLO and then the Hamas, the way they are going on. So one of these organizations, or you can say one part of Palestine is peaceful and they would like a peaceful solution. But the other part, which is governed by Hamas, which is itself a militant organization, they have gone for a militant solution. So I think these are all political scenarios. What I can say out of my study of religion is that in all situations, we just cannot, organizations cannot declare war, first of all. That has to be understood. The second thing is non-combatants, people who have no share in any way in the war, cannot be harmed in any way. This is something which the Quran is absolutely firm on, and the Prophet was very, very angry when people were at times reported that they were non-combatants and they were killed. So non-combatants cannot be touched. Organizations cannot launch war in any way. These are the 2 precepts that we know. So other than that, it's all, as I said, it's a whole political process of a century that has now culminated into a scenario in which a lot of land that was originally Israel or originally Palestine, has been gained or lost on both sides. And we should view it as a political debacle that is going on, with, of course, the stipulations that religion tells us is that you cannot harm non-combatants, and organizations can never declare war. War, if ever it has to be waged, it has to be waged by a state, by a country, And that too with a lot of contemplation, by knowing that whether this war is going to be won or not, or whether it's like a suicide attempt. Because the way, for example, if I take a step ahead and comment that the way the Hamas have gone forth in this, and I mean, it's like offering your own people for as an offering to them, because they were waiting for you to do something like this, and now they are doing whatever they wanted to do. So I think that we need to also do some soul searching, that what the strategy that is being adopted, the way this militancy is being promoted, I mean, it's not doing any good. But as I said, that's a debate for our political scientists, and I, for one, am not a political scientist. I can only present to you some religious insights, which I just did.
अस्सलाम वालेकुम।
Walaikum assalam.
पहले मैं आपके व्हाट्सएप पे रब्ता किया था, आपने मुझे कहा था है मैं यहाँ पे मीटिंग में सवाल करूँ, तो मैंने ये सवाल पूछा था कि अक्सर मैंने उलमा को ऐसे सुना है कि इस्लाम में औरत की आवाज़ का पढ़ रहा है, तो मैंने पूछा है या इस्लाम में ऐसी कोई चीज़ है और अगर किसी डॉक्यूमेंट्री या किसी म्यूजिक में औरत की आवाज़ इस्तेमाल हो रही है तो हम उसको सुन सकते हैं?
So my answer is that there is no such thing as the voice of a woman has to be abstained. You should not listen to it, or it has, as you said, parda. It is a very erroneous concept, and I have written on this and also spoken in detail on the rights of women and the way this verse, which says "La takhda'na bil qawl" in Surah Azar, it says that do not be complacent in your speech, has a very specific context. And it relates to the wives of the Prophet, because the hypocrites of his times, or the times of the Prophet, were scandalizing the lives of the Prophet's wives. So it was they who were told that you should not speak to these strangers, these hypocrites, in a way that they think that there is some option available for them. It is not a general commandment at all. It was a very situational thing. So today, I mean, there is no such thing as the parda of the voice of a woman. Women can speak, they can converse, they can do all sorts of things with what men do with their voices. So if you would like to have more details, I'll ask Mariam to refer you to those lectures, which have become a cause of this misconception that men must not hear the voice of women.
Lectures will be posted in the chat. Thank you, Dr. Saleem. Bismillah, Ahmed, you're up next. Please go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Saleem. My question is, when somebody actively or passively tries to harm another in a society, and if bad misfortune falls on them instead, can the person they've been trying to harm, can they think that it may have happened because of the way the person was behaving, or is it too arrogant to think that it happened because they were trying to dig a hole for somebody else? Can a society make that judgment, or is it wrong and arrogant? Or
I think, all that you can say is that you can say, as a conjecture, as a speculation, that perhaps what they did, what the seeds that they sowed, they just came back on them, and it's like whatever you sow, so shall you reap. At best what you can say is that, but you cannot be certain and definite in this regard, because you see, God has His own scheme of things and plan. What you can say with certainty is that whatever bad things a person is going to do, he is going to suffer its consequences, the consequence of these bad things, and the real place of those consequences is the hereafter. But yes, at times the Almighty also punishes people at times in this world, but we are not absolutely sure whether the person is suffering from that punishment, or is it a further test for that person. So the ultimate judgment is going to take place in the hereafter. And I think it's better to, all that you can do is, as I said, it's like a loose conjecture that you can make, but I should not, I think, dwell on it.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you. Akram Bhatti, you're up next. Please go ahead.
सर मेरा एक नमाज के बारे में सवाल है कि नमाज अगर आप घर पढ़ रहे हो तो कुरान पाक देखकर पढ़ सकते हैं?
I think if you're studying, if you're offering the optional prayer, the nawafil, that is fine, but not in the first prayer, because you must protect the structure and the format of the prayer.
सूरह फातिहा के बाद वो तो सही है कि फॉर्मेट वही हो गया.
Yes, but I think in the first prayer you should follow the complete format, but in your nawafil, yes, this could be thought of.
I have a question about the ayah in Surah Azar. I guess it's ayat number 59, in which the Almighty said, Almighty asked to the Prophet that ask your women and the other Muslim women to cover your faces. And the background of this ayah is about, as you know, that some hypocrites used to tease and harass them. So the Almighty commanded that start covering yourself so you could be respected and you could be recognized. So the point I want to make is that shouldn't have God commanded that? Do you have right to tease or harass the other women, like who are not slaves, or because they used to make these excuses that we thought these are not Muslim women, or these are slave women or non-Muslim women. So shouldn't have God commanded that? Is that okay to tease other women who are not Muslims? So can you please clear this confusion?
I mean, are you asking this question that Muslim women who were decent enough to cover their selves in a way that they would be recognized as believing women and therefore they would not be teased? So your question is that what about slave women who were allowed to be, I mean, to be harassed?
They used to make this excuse that we thought these are not the Muslim women. We thought these are
Yeah.
the slave women.
So I get your question. So you see what has happened is that you need to go back to those times of 14th centuries and travel back and see the scenario and the background. So you see, in those times, slavery was being gradually eradicated. And in this gradual eradication, a lot of measures were taken, and some of the measures were not taken because of the cultural aspect of them. So yes, these slave women, they were, it was demeaning for every person. I mean, they were humiliated at times, they were harassed, and this is a form of demeaning them. But this was actually put up for some time because the Quran was launching a campaign. We know that in Mecca and in Medina, there was a huge campaign being launched to liberate slaves, to have them emancipated so that they could become part of the society. And there was a whole movement that was started by the Quran right in the Meccan period, and it went up in the right to the end of the Prophet's life, near his end, when it was said that Katibuhum, that you must release every single slave, woman or man who would like to live as a free person, as long as he or she would guarantee that he or she is not going to become an economic burden on the society. So you see, parallel to this whole campaign, this is something which the Quran was already doing, having them set free, trying to raise their rights. So this is one area that was left sort of open because, as I said, this was something which did not require that amount of I would say, importance, in the sense that a lot of measures were already being taken in place to have those women liberated, and also at the same time their standard of living was being raised. So that is why, in my opinion, I think that the Quran did not say words to the effect that you don't neither tease slave women nor tease or harass the common ladies. So I think because of the fact that that campaign was going on in parallel and it had to end in a certain period of time, that that loophole was left, and ultimately, as I said, that was covered.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem. Rohan, you're up next. Please go ahead.
Thank you. My question is related to Mahar. Can the parents of or the family of the groom give Mahar instead of the groom himself, even if he earns? And can the marriage be consummated without giving Mahar?
Well, anyone can give mahar. If the husband is not earning, then the husband's parents, if they are giving it on his behalf, that is fine, as long as it is being given on his behalf. But consummation of marriage has got nothing to do with mahar. Mahar should be given. If there is a reason that a person is not being able to give mahar, then it should be given as soon as possible. Maybe a couple of days, or maybe a few more months, maybe, whatever the situation is. But that has nothing to do with the consummation of marriage. The consummation of marriage will take place as soon as the nikah ceremony has been performed, or that is all. But dowry or meher is something which the Quran has stipulated that the husband should pay, because it has a very deep symbolic significance that you are actually taking home the bride by telling her that I am going to be financially responsible for you, and this is a token for that financial responsibility that I have taken. So that has a very, very deep significance. So only if you have a very, very strong reason should that be deferred, otherwise it should be there. But it has no link with the consummation part. So consummation is as soon as you become husband and wife, the marriage can be consummated. Waalaikum salam.
Sir, my question is that the name of Hazrat Ibrahim's father is mentioned Azar. So the Abihi word is used Abihi. So was he his father or uncle? And can a father of a prophet be a mushrik?
Yes, he was his father. You see, the Quran is absolutely clear that he was his father. I mean, the word Abi has been used. I mean, this is a clear indication of the fact that Azar was the father of Abraham. And why cannot be the father of a prophet be mushrik? Because we know from history that, the Ishmaelites who were, born out of the prophet Ishmael, they were all monotheists. For for a very long period of time, they were monotheists. And ultimately, before this had happened, before the Ishmaelites or the Israelites had been created, we know that Abraham and before him, his own father and their own ancestors, they were people who were given to idolatry. So Abraham's father, we know from the Torah, and of course from the Quran as well, he was the chief priest of his own times in Iraq, in a place called Ur. And he believed in his own religion. And Abraham tried to preach monotheism to him. He told him that inni ja'ani min al-ilm, that I received God's knowledge, the book of God, and whatever you're doing is something which is against your own nature. And the Quran is replete with this Abrahamic sermonizing in various surahs. In particular, if you'll see Surah Ibrahim, you see Surah Anbiya, you see Surah Taha, you see some Surah Qasas, Surah Maryam. All of them you'll find Hazrat Ibrahim or Abraham talking to his, even in Surah Mumtahina, in telling him that, you're doing something which is against your nature, it's against human nature, it is something that you have no proof of. So yes, these are all indisputable form of evidence which tell us that his father was deeply involved in idolatry.
So, sir, when we say that when prophets are chosen, so they are chosen purely by the will of Allah, or is there something, their personal traits, or is मतलब इसमें उनका अपना भी कोई कमाल होता है या मतलब बस अल्लाह ने चुन लिया जिसको चाहा?
So you see, this is both, as the Quran says, Allahu yaj'alu haysu risalatahu, which means that God knows whom He chooses, which actually tells us that yes, it is God's choice. But the reason of God's choice is that the person himself is the best person of his own times. He has the best nature. He is one of the most outstanding human beings. So the choice of God itself lies in the fact that it's not just a whimsical choice, it's not just a haphazard choice, it's a choice based on merit. That the person himself who was chosen as a prophet was an exceptional human being. And this is the case with all prophets of God, that before they become prophets of God, they are outstanding human beings. They are people who profess very high moral characters. And that is why actually God chooses them for this task.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saleem.